Hello again and welcome back to our course on Project 2019. And in this section we're going to look at some of the general principles of reporting, and then in the next section we'll look at customization and the creation of new reports in a little bit more detail. Now, generally speaking, the reporting we're looking at applies to the currently open project. And if I jump up to the Report tab, on the ribbon you can see I have a main group in the middle there, View Reports. And that's mainly what we're going to concentrate on in this and the next section. On the left there is an option for compare projects, whereby you can compare two versions of a project. That's out of the scope of this course, although it is a very useful facility. And on the right there is a Visual Reports button, and that gives you access to Project 2019's visual reports. And these enable you to use Microsoft Excel or Microsoft Visio to do detailed analysis and reporting on the data from your projects. So if you have either, or in fact both of those products, it's a very good idea to get into visual reports and take a look and see what they can do for you. But those are also out of the scope for this course, partly because you need to be familiar with Excel or Visio to take advantage of them. Now we're going to concentrate on the main body of reports. If you've used a version of Project before, so maybe 2013 reporting, in those earlier versions there was a very different reporting tool to now. And if you look at the reporting facilities in Project 2019, having been used to one of the older versions, they'll probably be virtually unrecognizable to you. Now, first of all, I'm going to click on the Dashboards button. And there's a list of 5 dashboards. We'll look at one or two of those a little bit later on, but right at the bottom there is a More Reports button. And More Reports basically shows you all of the options that you have in that View Reports group, because the options down here correspond to the buttons in the View Reports group. So the first option on the left, Custom, gives you access to any custom reports that you've made. And in fact, exercise 8 is going to involve you making a custom report. Then it gives you access to dashboards, the resource reports, the cost reports, the reports on work in progress, access to some getting started information, and then the facility to create new reports. And then there is a link through to recent reports. So the first thing we're going to do is look at one of the dashboards. And we're going to look at Project Overview. So there it is, let's click it. Now the first thing to point out is that your project overview may well not look exactly the same as mine, and you'll see why during this and the next section. But let me just describe this report to you in the broadest terms first. The report itself is made up of a number of components, and you notice that at the moment when I've opened the report I have a contextual tab on the ribbon. So here we have Report Tools and a Design sub-ribbon. If I click on one of the components of the report, so if I click on the chart just here, you'll see that not only do I have the Report Tools contextual ribbon, I also then get a Chart Tools ribbon as well, with 2 sub-tabs, Design and Format, specifically related to the item that I clicked on, in this case the charts. And I also have on the right hand side a field list pane that's opened up, so I can go through and make some nice customizations there as well. But for now I'm just going to close that field list down. So it's worth bearing in mind that wherever you are clicked you will get those contextual ribbons. If I click on the table just here, you'll see I get a Table Tools ribbon at the top with a Design and Layout sub-ribbon, so I can make any changes to the design and layout that I like. And that's because I am clicked on what is essentially a table, so those contextual ribbons only appear when they are needed. Now, when you're working on customizing a report, sometimes you may want to customize the whole report or the overall design of the whole report. So sometimes you may want to work on the individual components, and the tools you have for each component depend on what sort of component it is. And if we take, for example, our chart again, you can see you can work on the design and format of the chart in many different ways. So for example, you can certainly do things like change the color scheme. You could also change the style if you wanted to. So let's go a bit crazy and select style 8. And you could turn it into a different sort of chart if you wanted to by clicking change chart type, and I could have any one of these charts if I wanted to. Now going back to what I said right at the beginning of this section, once you've got those general principles, there is really a huge amount that you can do in reports to customize the standard reports and create your own. So let's first look at the design of the report overall. If I click away from any of the individual components, I'm back to just having the Report Tools Design tab. And working from left to right, there is a Themes group where I can change the overall theme, colors, fonts, and effects of the report. And if I click on the drop down in the bottom of Themes, it opens up the Themes gallery. So I'm going to go through and I'm going to apply a different theme, and let's apply Ion. And there we go. I get a completely different look and feel to my report. And then what I could do if I wanted to, if I wasn't happy with some of these colors, I could go in and change those individual colors. I could also go in and change the font, so maybe I want it back to Calibri. And I could also apply some different effects if I wanted to. So that's one aspect of the overall design of the report. Another aspect is that you might want to add new components to the report. So for instance, you might want to add another chart. So if I click on chart just here, it lets me choose a particular type of chart that I want without committing to a particular type of data. So let's assume that I wanted to insert a pie chart related to something. If I click on OK, it appears, and then as you'll see later, what would happen next is that you would decide what data you wanted to show and how you wanted to format that pie chart and so on. But at the moment, let's just delete it, and we'll come back to those individual components later. We then have the report group, and one of the options there underneath Manage is the organizer. And we're going to come back to that later on, as it is a very important part of Project 2019. Now, if you've got this report the way that you want it and you want to include it or insert it into another document, you have a copy report button, and that copies your report to the clipboard, and then you can paste it into another document. If you're planning to print the reports, so either to a printer or perhaps into a PDF or something like that, you also have some page setup options here. So let's suppose that I said, well, I want to do this but with wide margins. I could go down to margins and select wide. And when I print that, I'll get wider margins down the side. And I can check that if I go into File and down to Print. I'm going to see a print preview of exactly what will print out. Now, I can see with those wide margins, I'm not sure about those, so I might have to do a little bit of maneuvering to get that to fit on the page, because I can see that with my default down here of A4 paper size, it doesn't quite fit. So you might go back and you might decide to set those margins to narrow and then check. And I can see that, yes, that looks a lot better. It's now fitting everything onto that page. So you can kind of adjust these settings as suited. So they're the main options when it comes to the design of the report overall. Now I'm going to go and copy this report to the clipboard by clicking on Copy Report. And let me just demonstrate dropping that into a PowerPoint slide. So let's pull up a blank PowerPoint slide. So there's an empty slide, and if I right click and select paste, you can see that there is my report. And having dropped it in there, I still have the individual components, and if I want to move things around within PowerPoint, I still can. So I can grab this table and I can drag and drop it and reposition all of the elements. So that's the end of this section where we've looked at the design of the report overall. In the next section, we're going to look at the design and formatting of individual components. So please join me for that.